Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me as always is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. How are you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. And of course, what our listeners don't know is that Chip is a birthday boy. This weekend celebrated his birthday, got to see his granddaughter. I hope everything was fantastic and you had a great time.
Yeah, that was unavoidable. That's what I tell people when you get into events like that. I mean, with this COVID keeping us locked up, I hadn't seen her in 3 months, and she'll be 6 months old tomorrow. So that's half a lifetime. And holy cow, is she grown? And she's just so aware. And there's nothing like looking at children in their eyes and just being so into everything, knowing that they can't really process their thoughts except being amazed about everything. And that is one of the coolest things about being a child.
It really is. Especially when we get to see things through their eyes. And I think being separated from people over these few months, it really teaches you to enjoy the small things like seeing family and really appreciating it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a wonderful weekend.
Excellent. So today we're making a return trip to the Success Showcase bookshelf. And the book we're going to be discussing today is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. But in a nutshell, The Miracle Morning is about creating a morning routine that's going to step up your performance. Now, I know, Chip, you've had a morning ritual for years. I think even before you read this book.
Oh, a long time before. Absolutely. And part of the, reading the book was a validation for some of the things that I'm already doing. But you and I talk a whole lot about the power of positivity, and we talk about all the negativity out there as far as dominating the news and everything else, where people themselves have a whole lot of positivity in them and are basically good. But the bottom line is you have to bring it out in yourselves. And one of the best ways to do that is to, number one, choose to be positive, which is your choice. But number two, the way you start your day. And this is what this book is all about. If you lay a positive, solid foundation for a good day, you're a whole lot more likely to have a good day than if you just get up and look at all the negative stuff going on in your life and, hit the sleep button about 25 times before you get out of bed because you don't want to face another day. That's kind of what this is all about, is developing a positive morning routine. I mean, there's a lot of other facets in this book that people may or may not agree with, but my big takeaway was the morning routine and the different components of that, which we'll go over in a little bit.
Yeah. And we've talked so much about having a positive attitude, and based on that, I'm going to be honest. I don't care for this book. There's a lot in the book that I don't care for, but we are going to focus, take that positive mindset, and we're going to focus on the positive points that it does make. I will say there are some things in the book. If you are a morning person, then by all means make a morning routine. However, the amount of sleep you get is important. You need to make sure you're getting good sleep. I am not a morning person. I have never been a morning person. My routine for a lot of the same things that go on in this book takes place the night before. And that gives me a good night's sleep, and I get up with the energy and I go about my day positively from there. So we're going to talk about the aspects of the miracle morning, but I think it's important for everybody to realize these are things that no matter what time of day you do them, these are good things for you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he starts out talking about having what he calls a level 10 life. And, keep in mind that sales is his profession. He's a very, very good salesperson and so on and so forth. And there's a lot more to life than sales and money. But some of these three imperative arguments that he talks about, the first one is you are just as worthy, deserving, and capable of creating and sustaining extraordinary health and obviously wealth and then happiness in anybody. And what the message there is, just to start living in alignment with that truth. The bottom line is that person in the mirror is really, really important. And the more you work on that person in the mirror, the more that positively affects everybody in your life, including you. And number two, the way to do this is to dedicate time every day to becoming that person. And again, it talks about how you wake up in the morning routine dramatically affects the levels of success. And the bottom line is, even if you're not a morning person, if you wake up in the morning with a positive mindset. I mean, he does talk about focusing on tomorrow, today, tonight before you go to bed to set the tone. It's really, really important. So, I mean, those three things, you're worthy of doing it, and you got to work on doing it to make yourself a better person for everybody, and start your day positively.
And one of the things he talks about that I do really like is that he gives a lot of different parts to his miracle morning, but you get to choose which of these is going to work well for you. And why that's important is that it's not necessarily the aspect of getting your exercise in every day or reading every day or doing the affirmations as much as the focus that you're putting on self-improvement and your self-image. And that is so important because we are our own worst enemies. And he talks about the fact that without doing self-improvement, you're never going to get past where you are. And it's so important to follow through with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And making it a daily habit is so important. I mean, he talks about, rising above mediocrity, joining the quote unquote top 5%. His causes of mediocrity, these are true. The bottom line is things like looking in the rearview mirror, living in the past, dwelling on negative thinking is not good for you. I think I used the term last week that was put together. It says, dwelling on negative thinking is like fertilizing weeds. That's a quote from Norman Vincent Peale. Others are lack of purpose, isolating incidents, procrastinating, staying in bed, and so on and so forth. Having a lack of accountability, talks about getting an accountability partner. The people you hang around with, if you hang around with negative people, chances are you're going to be the same. Working on yourself, he talks about personal development work and obviously having some urgency in there. So, I mean, these are things that we all have in us as far as lacks going. And if we can identify those things up front and put together a daily routine to approach these things and work on yourself, that's really what this book is all about.
Absolutely. And I think it's a difficult thing to do, to look at the people around you and judge whether or not they're the right people. But it's so important because you are the average of the people you hang around with. So if you're hanging around with people that aren't doing anything, that are, procrastinating, you're going to do the same thing. And if you are surrounded by negative people, that's going to pull you down. And one of the hardest things to do is look at somebody and come to the conclusion, I have to cut you out of my life. You're damaging me. But unless you actually take that effort to do that, you're never going to rise above what he refers to as your mediocre life.
Yeah, it does. It gets back to the doing things every morning. And it said it starts with drawing your line in the sand, just exactly as you talked about. I mean, enough is enough. You got to draw your line there, and you just got to take off and live your life the way it's meant to be done. And it's very, very important to realize that.
Right. And he talks about his savers. That's the acronym he uses, and they're all they're excellent tools to use. If you can do them every morning, great. If you can do them any time of day, they're great. But let's go through those. And that first S in savers is silence. And we've talked a lot about meditation, about looking inward. This is basically what silence is. Prayer, he mentions, is part of the silence, but it's about centering yourself and just taking that time not to be inundated and getting yourself where you need to be to either start or continue your day.
Yeah, and if you do wake up a little bit negative, I mean, part of that is reflecting upon all the good things that are going on in your life, feeling gratitude and so on. It's so important to start that way. He talks about deep breathing. I mean, that's the easiest part of meditation is just taking a deep breath. But starting the day with 5 minutes of silence, I mean, he breaks these things up. He says a 60-minute sample is 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that, and so on and so forth. And just sitting silently for 5 minutes when you wake up and reflecting positively on whatever you want to reflect on is a wonderful way to start the day.
Right. And he also does mention, for a lot of this, he uses the 60 minutes as an example. But he also says you have to be flexible with this to fit your schedule. And he actually gives an example of a 6-minute miracle morning. So the amount of time you're spending on each of these is not as important as are you getting the benefits of it. If you can get the benefits out of it in 2 minutes, great. If it takes you 10, 15 minutes to get the benefits, take the time to do that.
Yeah, and you may not be able to do everything. You may be better at some things than other things in this too. I mean, silence is something that everybody can do. Number two, the savers, the A is affirmations, and these are basically the 5 steps that he mentioned. Is what do you really want? Why do you want it? Whom are you committed to being to create what you're looking to do? What are you going to do to attain it? And then he talks about adding some inspirational quotes and philosophies. But the bottom line is affirmations. We talk about Stephen R. Covey, beginning with the end in mind, making your I am statements and so on and so forth. And that is a very, very powerful way to really, really start your day, to really begin with your goals, the end in mind, seeing that and planning accordingly.
Absolutely. And most people, including the author, are most familiar with affirmations from Al Franken doing Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. But even though Al Franken played it for laughs, it has been shown that repeating positive messages to yourself, either out loud or in your head, have many positive benefits to your self-image and your positive attitude. So take the time to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, it was really, really bringing up that Al Franklin thing. I love watching YouTube, and I just watched within the last week the episode with him and Michael Jordan. And he didn't know who Michael Jordan was, and Michael Jordan finished the thing, and people like me. And then he started giving Al Franklin some tips, and by the end, he was consoling Al Franklin. It was so funny.
Yeah, but even Hal Elrod makes reference in the book to Stuart Smalley, because that was how he was introduced to affirmations, and he didn't realize how powerful a tool it was because he thought it was a joke from Saturday Night Live. So even though that humorous aspect of it is how many of us think of it, it really does have a big impact.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, it's really, really important for you to like yourself. We get back to that all the time. So, I mean, even though he says it in a funny way, it's very, very important because we've said so many times it's impossible for you to give your best self if you don't like the person in the mirror in the first place. So, affirmations are a great way to do that.
Exactly. And then next savers will go on to V.
V is for visualization. And what he talked about here is getting ready. And for visualization, if you want to do that by yourself, just close your eyes, get relaxed in a comfortable position, and just breathe and visualize the different things that you want to do and that kind of thing, things that make you happy. What do you really want in your life, your goals, desire, and your dreams, who you need to be, who you want to be with, and so on and so forth. He talks at the end about a vision board, and I love vision board. I mean, looking at different things, and I've been working out of my home office since 1996, and I am a calendar buff. I like to make picture calendars and give them to people, and I actually have my last 4 years of calendar sitting right in my face here with family pictures, and it's just an amazing way to just take a look at things because this is what life is all about. So, I mean, whatever you're doing, it's great to just visualize, again, things with that vacation you want to go on. It could be the different things that you want to do as far as family goes, or whatever it is, if you can sit there in silence and just visualize that, or just open your eyes and have it right in front of you, it helps you out a whole lot.
Absolutely. And the key to visualization is that you're focusing on what your goal is, what it is you want to get, where you want to go, how you want your life to look. So the more you focus on that and the clearer you can visualize it. And if you can go through magazines and find pictures that give you the images of what you're striving for, do what you need to do to be able to clarify that visual and focus on it.
Absolutely. I mean, so in the book The Secret, there was a really, really great example of that. I can't remember who the person was in that. I think it may have been Bob Proctor, one of those big motivational people, but or Bob Asaroff, and he had just moved to a huge, huge, huge house, a mansion out in California. And his son was in the room with him with the boxes, and he was pulling magazines out of the boxes. And he said, "Dad, what is this?" He said, "These are my affirmations." And he pulled the magazine out. In the magazine was a picture of the very house that they were living in. And obviously the author just broke down crying. Talk about the power of visualization, but they were actually living in the house that he circled years ago in the magazine and had totally forgot about. So, I mean, that's a powerful extreme, but visualization does work.
Absolutely. And it's not something you can do it on your own, but it's not something you necessarily have to do on your own. We've talked previously about the fact that at the beginning of the year, my wife and I and our kids, we put together a vision board of things we want to accomplish for that year. And by doing it together, one, it makes it a great family activity, but two, it keeps all of us on the same track. So everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of these exercises are great that you can do as a family, like affirmations too. Um, the next one, maybe you can do this as a family, but maybe you can't. And that one is exercise, the big E. And this is the one where after I read the book, I got into doing this very, very first thing in the morning. Several years ago, I went to the gym for 3, 4 years in a row, and then I kind of slacked off a little bit. And all I do every day is I do like 10 minutes of hard exercise. First thing in the morning after having a glass of water, which he highly recommends, and that kind of gets me pumping for the rest of the day. But the bottom line is if you can do something first thing in the day to get yourself going, or put that into your daily routine sometime, and he even mentions exercising your mind through yoga and things like that, it's really, really important to work on yourself that way.
Yeah, exercise is crucial. Healthy body leads to a healthy mind. And your mind and body are connected. You need to be looking at how you're staying healthy. Now, I don't do an exercise routine in the morning. I actually have a section of my office where I have exercise equipment. And during the day, I take 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and then before going to sleep, I do some, because this helps me keep my juices going all through the day. You need to find the time of day that's right for you to exercise. And as he says in the book, and I can't stress this enough, if you are somebody who does not exercise, talk to your doctor before starting any exercise routine.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to go out and pump iron for an hour if you haven't done anything for a long time. One of the easy things that you can do is start walking. If you can go out and walk 10, 15 minutes a day and get up to a half an hour a day, that does a world of good. And in these days when we're have been clammed up in our homes for such a long time, I always walked a couple of times a week, but my wife and I do it just about every day now, and it's just wonderful getting out and walking.
Yeah, walking is great exercise. And if you're somebody who hasn't been exercising regularly, it's easy to get into. It's low impact and very effective aerobic exercise. And that's something else. You really want to be able to do aerobic exercises earlier in the day. That's the stuff that gets your blood pumping. And maybe some more relaxing exercises, yoga. I actually do some planking and some work on abs later in the evening, because these are things that they tire me out, but they're not getting my blood pumping to keep me up at night.
Yeah. And one of the things you can do while you're walking too is if you're in a nice area or whatever, or just drive someplace, you can do visualization at the same time just by taking a look at nature and enjoying that too. So you can get in two for the price of one.
Absolutely. And remember, people always say, I don't have time in the morning, or I don't have time to fit these. There are all sorts of ways you can fit these things in. Like Chip just said, while you're taking your walk, you can be doing visualization. You can be saying your affirmations while you're taking a morning shower. You can be, exercising and saying your affirmations at the same time. So even though the book sets it up as one after the other, you can combine activities to fit them into how your schedule goes.
Oh, yeah. Walking meditation is huge too. Talk about the silence.
Yes.
I mean, just sitting there and just actually feeling every step that you're having and appreciating that and feeling connected. It's exercise isn't as bad as it seems, and there's a lot of creative ways to do that. But the bottom line is you got to do something.
Absolutely, especially in a world where so many of us spend most of our day sitting in front of a computer. It's so important to get the blood pumping.
Absolutely. One of the ways to find out what good exercises to do is the next one, which is R, and that's reading. It says if you can read for maybe just 10 pages a day, it's so important to work on yourself, personal development wise, learning things. It's once you get into that, you are really, really going to be a whole lot better off. And I mean, I've been reading forever in the morning, and really personal development side types of things. Another thing that is very popular these days is audible.com, listening to things. But if you get in the habit of working on yourself every day and picking up new things, it makes your life a whole lot better. It's exercising your brain.
Exactly. And obviously, we're big proponents of reading. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the Success Showcase bookshelf. One of the things I absolutely adore about Audible is the fact that you can change the playback speed. So if you're listening to something that you really want to focus on, you can actually slow down the speed and give yourself more time to digest it. If you're like me, where you want to hear as much of it as possible, I average generally when I'm listening to books, I put it at 1.5 times the normal speed. It's a little bit faster, but not fast enough that you start hearing, it sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But this gives me that extra time. So when I'm spending 20 minutes listening, I'm actually getting 30 minutes of the book in.
Yeah, and another nice thing about Audible, I do a lot of I used to do a lot of driving before I got quarantined, and I like list. I don't have a lot of time to read, and unlike you, I'm a morning person, so I do a lot of reading in the morning before I get out. But during the day, I like to listen to Audible, and what I do is if there are books like this Miracle Morning book that I like the pointers in there, that's when I'll buy the book afterwards and kind of use it as a reference. So I spend a lot more time listening than I do reading, but I do read at least for half an hour different things in the morning in a whole bunch of different vehicles. My routine has grown over the years. So, but with all the birthdays I've had, I can afford to do that now.
And as we said, you can combine these things. Another one of the great things about audiobooks is you can be listening to the book while you're exercising. So you're exercising your body and you're exercising your mind. But reading is absolutely crucial, because the more you learn, the more you earn. You need to keep learning. And it's not just about continually getting new books. It also pays to go back and re-listen or reread books that you've read before, because it helps you take the lessons that are in the books and just cement them in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. You never remember everything with one pass through. So the important pointers, you got to you got to write those down. You got to go back and listen time and time again. And it's a good thing to do things. If you haven't done it in a few years, pull out a good book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, something like that, to just get yourself focused again. So the final.
Right. And before we go on to the final, we've talked about a lot of books. And in this book, he actually says that two of the books that influenced him the most are Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog, both of which I think we've talked about both of them, if not on the bookshelf, then in other podcasts. But both of these are fantastic places to start if you're looking to get into self-development.
Yep, no, we have discussed both of those. Those are two of my favorites too. And then really tying everything together, the last S stands for scribing. And when I think of scribing, I think of my gratitude journal. It's just writing down thoughts about things. But one of the best ways to start your morning right or to finish your day right is to write down things that you're grateful for in the form of a gratitude journal. And I know that I've mentioned this before, but I actually started doing mine about 6 years ago. And it's as simple for me is instead of writing it down on paper, I use an Excel spreadsheet with two columns. One has the date and the next one has a long row where I just write down comments. And I do that every single day. And the nice thing about that, putting that in Excel, I have a workbook that has a page for every single year since 2015 in there. So I'm actually able to go back there and look at all the wonderful things that I've been grateful for the last 5 years, if I want to, on this very day. And of course, I did a lot of it this weekend because my birthday was yesterday. But that's a fantastic way to keep a positive mindset and to really just keep a positive outlook on everything and make everything else fall into place. Because the bottom line is positivity is so, so important. And the maintenance method for staying positive is gratitude.
Absolutely. Gratitude journals are a fantastic way to keep a positive mindset and also remind yourself when you look back on just how lucky you are and how much you've achieved. But a gratitude journal is only one type of scribing. You can do full journals where you're recording your thoughts, where you're trying to work things out that are going through your life. You can, combine. You can have a gratitude journal and, be doing full journaling, as they call it. The important thing is to take the time to get your thoughts down. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like Chip said, he does this in a spreadsheet. You can use a spiral notebook, an old composition notebook. You can go out and buy, a heavy-duty journal that's actually going to last you for years and years with, leather-bound cover if you want. You can use an iPad app. You can use a word processor on your computer. The method that you write in is not important. What's important is that you take the time to do it, that you're actually focused on the writing and you put something down each day. So we're just about at the end of our time. So Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from the Miracle Morning?
Well, everybody should strive to be the best version of themselves. And, he talks about drawing a line in the sand and starting up on that today. And again, it doesn't matter what time of day you're doing that, but what the takeaway is to get yourself into a positive daily routine that includes maybe all of these, maybe part of these things that you're doing on a daily basis to really work on yourself. And if you do that, then your profession and your relationships and everything else around you are going to improve with that. But it starts with the person in the mirror. So really just give yourself that benefit of working on yourself daily. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely. For me, the big takeaway is the focus on self-improvement. Each person can choose the steps that he or she needs to go through, but focusing on being a better person than you were the day before is how you get out of your mediocre life, or as Elrod puts it, how you strive for that rated 10 life. It needs to be done constantly. It's something you have to do day after day. Each day, get a little bit better than you were the day before. And before you know it, that's how you're going to get to your dreams. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us at the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.